Hey guys, good to see you again. This might be kind of a random video, but a couple weeks ago I was listening to the album Hey Stupid, obviously, and as the song Hurricane Years came and went, something clicked. I was like, I get it now. Finally, the final few pieces of the puzzle have been complete, or I finally found that the last stretch of the map that led me to the X spot, things of that nature. I don't know if I should be too happy because I feel like it took me to be in the situation I'm in to understand what he's talking about. But sometimes that happens with songs. Some people don't get it until they can relate to what's going on or find things that sort of parallel what's going on with them. Because for so long, whether it was me doing the album review or talking to friends about the album or people in the comment sections, Hurricane Years went from a song that I thought was on the lower end in terms of quality to appreciating it, to even enjoying it, but still never fully understanding what Alice was getting at in the song. I understood bits and pieces, but there was a lot of haze and fog that was in the path to like the clear picture. And some of the lines, which are great, I took literally. So it was kind of like, something, maybe he's not saying that he's actually a part of, Al-Qaeda or something, and when he says looking through terrorist stocks. So I'm like, well, let me ruminate on this. So then, eventually everything just clicked for me. But anyways, I do want to say that I stole this song, this idea from my buddy Jeff over at Calico Silver. He used to do a lot of Bob Dylan lyrical reviews, so I did steal his patent. I wouldn't be too upset if he sues me because, like I said, I stole this idea. But Hurricane Years, it also came to mind too, where I'm like, it's kind of like a little brother or little sister song to the title track, Hey Stupid, where the idea of being in a situation where you feel that the only way to resolve a temporary problem is through a permanent solution rises, and how Alice serves as the antidote to that, to flip it upside down and say like, no, that's not that's not right, that's not the way you want to go down to, type of thing. I think that might become more clearer as I go through these lyrics. So for the song Hurricane Years, you start off with very elementary, lines. I got a ticket to nowhere, got no respect for the law. Again, for him, he just feels like he's a lost soul. There's nothing in his life that he views in terms of worth or passion or joy. Can't really conjure up anything in his future in terms of goals or ideas or things to strive for. He's just kind of a lost soul. He's there, just breathing. Got no respect for the law. Based on his situation emotionally, intrinsically, perhaps the only way he feels that he can let these type of negative thoughts out is by breaking the laws. He just goes and pleases as he will without a care for rules or regulations, things of that sort. Then he goes on to say, I got no use because it's all abuse. It's the cutting edge of the saw, which is a great line, by the way. But I do think it's pretty interesting though. I got no use because it's all abuse. I think for him, he has no self-worth in his eyes. He doesn't feel like he offers anything to the table because currently his life is nothing but abuse. Perhaps personally, he deals with, like self-hatred, self-loathing, hurting himself, carrying all these mental and emotional aspects of pain, anger, disgust, frustration, things of that nature. Or perhaps there are people, extrinsically that are causing abuse as well. But to go on to say it's the cutting edge of the saw. So in his life, it's all abrasive. There's no soft side to it. There's no room to breathe or to relax or to see, the grand picture of things, to where what you're going through, like, yes, it's very difficult, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Currently it's just all disgusting and raw and things of that nature. So then he goes on to say, ain't got no time for the future, ain't got no time for the past. Again, very elementary. There's nothing in his life that he looks forward to in his future. Again, no ideas of goals or ambitions. And for the past, there's nothing that he can leech onto for nostalgia or for, the sake of remembrance and having a joy in that. It's all just been very bleak for him. I'm running up a down escalator. I'm going nowhere fast, which again, the escalator part, I'm like, fuck, man, he's a great writer, is he not? But I'm running up a down escalator, one step up, two steps back type of thing, where he, in his life, if he gets a little bit of progress, just a little bit of betterment, something happens and it sweeps him off his feet, and then now he's having to put double the effort in to get to that spot, and then once more, and then he's back again, that type of thing, that the long, tumultuous journey of, progress, of health and things of that nature. And like as he says, I'm going nowhere fast. This is taking for fucking ever, currently in life, nothing's going well, right? And then he goes on to say, I'm hanging on like a spider, blowing in the wind. This storm's gonna tear a hole right through this web I'm in. So in his mind, in his life currently, he feels that he is hanging on, by a thread, right? He's just gritting his teeth, he's white knuckling it. But at any moment now, a slight poof of wind, and that's gonna send him over, right? So he's just barely hanging on, like he says, like a spider blowing in the wind. But then this storm that's coming in, in his mind, that this massive hurdle that's heading his way, that he can either feel it or anticipate it or sees it coming. It's going to be too much weight to bear, right? But then once you enter the chorus, thunder, lightning, the wind outside is so damn frightening, but it's all right, stand clear, you're living in the hurricane years. So this is what I meant when it came to being like a little brother or a little sister song for the title track, Hey Stupid, where he's in such a rut. His life is, so negative in terms of, anger, anguish, depression. He feels completely lost. He doesn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Everything's just so bleak that this final hurdle that's coming up, it's probably going to be the end of him, right? But Alice comes in with the chorus saying, what you're going through, it's a fucking thunderstorm, it's a lightning storm. The wind outside, pretty fucking scary. What you're going through right now, it's, nobody is envious of it. Some people have gone through it, others haven't. But those that have had it know what you're going through. Very, very painful, very hard. Takes a lot of progress, like he says earlier. It feels like you're going up a down escalator, right? So you may feel that you want to, like for Hey Stupid, you want to go through a permanent solution of that song, shooting yourself, killing yourself. This song, he seems to be near that edge, But Alice comes in and says, it's all right, stand clear. You're living in the hurricane years. A hurricane, yes, very destructive, very powerful, but he eventually passes. And what he's going through right now eventually will, so just stand clear. And he goes on to say, I've been through major destruction, I've seen through terrorist eyes. That line always tripped me up because for such a while I took it in a literal way. I'm like, well, maybe he just feels like he's part of Al-Qaeda or something, Well, then it wasn't until a couple weeks ago, I'm like, okay, I understand where he's getting at. I've been through major destruction, in his life. Everything's just very tumultuous, right? We get the picture by this point, but I've seen through terrorist eyes. The last thing a terrorist cares for is his life or the life of others. So he's been in this situation currently in his life where he views himself through the lens of a terrorist, in the sense that he thinks his life is worthless. Perhaps I should just harm myself, get rid of it. Or terrorist, full of anger and hate. He has those same, accolades, if you will, those same ideas, emotions running through him intrinsically, where he feels that way about himself. But he can also lash it out onto others, right? If you're in such a rut, this is what you feel. You're gonna explode and you're gonna bring it out on other people like a terrorist. If you think like a bomb, hurt as many people as you can, living life through terrorist eyes in this situation, let out your anger and frustration and hatred onto others, right? Sometimes I feel no emotion. Sometimes I break down and cry. Very, very interesting, because I think, myself included, but there are a number of people who get upset at themselves. I know this is a bit of a tangent, but there are some people that get upset at themselves when they don't exhibit an emotion to something when they feel like they should. If you hear like somebody dies but you don't cry, you start to wonder if there's something wrong with you because you didn't cry. So sometimes he's going through all these these events in his life. He's like, sometimes I'm just kind of, I don't know, there's just like nothing there. Perhaps he feels numb to it too. That could be a thing. But sometimes he breaks down and cries. Again, very, very simple for that. But I do like the juxtaposition that he goes for here. Sometimes I feel no emotion. I'm kind of like a stone. I'm just going through all this. I may seem perfectly fine, but inside it's, a hurricane, if you will. Sometimes I break down and cry. I make it more visible. And it says, I need to walk on a wire. I need a layer of skin. I need a preacher breathing fire to burn away my sins. There's also some personal elements to that regarding Alice, which I would touch on, but I need to walk on a wire. He feels, walking on a wire, very, very, it's life or death, right? Literally, if you don't have a net, at least. But in life, you don't get second chances, right? So, but he feels like he's having to walk on a wire. That frightening feeling, that on the edge, like literally, just tight roping life right now. Right, he's been in it so long that that's becoming the norm, and he feels like he has to walk down that path. Getting better is boring, that type of thing. I need to live life on the edge. Like all these thoughts and emotions and ideas, and this rut that I find myself is kind of becoming an identity of sorts, and I just need to like walk this path. I need a layer of skin, perhaps some clarity that's going on there. Maybe he feels like he needs some thicker skin, sort of pulling him up by his bootstraps, if you will, have some positive aspirations of helping get through this. But then when it comes to the personal aspect, it's two ways. It's both the character and both Alice himself too. When he says, I need a preacher breathing fire to burn away my sins. So the personal element of Alice Cooper is, in the early 80s, once he finally got clean of both alcohol and drugs, he talks about going with his wife Cheryl, who's obviously a massive part in his journey of sobriety and rehabilitation, of going to a church, and there's this this pastor or preacher that was just like spitting fire, kind of like what you can think of, obviously, when it comes to that type of the amount of seriousness and ambition and passion that goes into some preachers, to the point that they really do lay the hammer down. They really do lay the hand of God down on you, to the point where it's like, oh fuck me, man, if I I don't know, 30 years ago I ripped a DVD, I think I'm going to go to hell, type of thing. But anyways, what he's going at here, I think I need a preacher breathing fire to burn away my sins. Maybe I need that type of ferocity to get out, type of thing. Really shake you by the shoulders, slap you in the face to wake up, and you're going to be fine, type of thing. And then he goes on to say, and I can't help the victims on the side of the road, and I can't stop the cyclone that's about to explode. Again, that was another part where I took it literally, but I think what he's getting at here when he says, I can't help the victims on the side of the road, I think what he means by victims are other people that are in a similar boat as him. If I can't help myself currently, how am I supposed to help other people? So he just kind of, watches them by type of thing. They're all going through the same problems, the same grievances, the same, self-loath, if you will, to where he says, like, again, if I can't help myself, I can't help others in a similar situation. And I can't stop the cyclone that's about to explode. Again, this final hurdle that's coming towards him. He's hanging on like a spider in the wind type of thing. It's like, man, fuck, this is inevitable. Once this happens, I think, that's going to be the end for me, right? Go back to the chorus. And then he says, turn my eyes to heaven, watching all the clouds roll by. I see the blood moon rising. I know I'm way too young to die. So this is when the revelation aspect comes in, where obviously Al is very religious, and he does such a great job at incorporating religious elements without feeling like he's beating you over the head with it. Very rare do you see that in other musicians and singers and stuff like that. But he's at this point now where he's like, everything is so bleak. He's like, well, what about God? So he looks up at heaven, and then he sees this brief moment of watching the clouds roll by. If you still want to think about a hurricane, maybe the eye of the storm where things are clear. I see the blood moon rising, that's like an omen, right? I know I'm way too young to die. So finally this epiphany kicks in. If you still want to go down the religious aspect, God entered him, right? Where he's like, wait a minute, what I'm about to do is going to be permanent, and I know that as soon as I, kill myself, basically what this song is about, what he's heading down towards, I know that the moment I'm in the afterlife, I'm going to know that that's a huge mistake, right? So I know I'm way too young to die. I know that, it's inevitable, this hurdle, everything that I'm going through right now seems very impossible to get out of. But I see the blood moon rising, and I'm watching the clouds roll by. Heaven's with me. I know that this is currently a temporary problem, and while yes, it may feel like I'm on a down escalator, one step up, two steps back, eventually I will get to that light at the end of the tunnel. And then you finish it off with the chorus. So there you go, Hurricane Ears. Very, very heavy. I was feeling it too, but I was satisfied that I was just finally able to understand what he was going at with this song. But again, that's just me. That's just a subjective part once I was listening to the song. But let me know what you think about the song Hurricane Years. Is this something that you like? Do you have similar mindsets when you listen to this song, what I'm thinking about? Do you agree or disagree? Do you see different interpretations as to what he's getting about? I'll be pretty curious. But otherwise, thank you guys for watching, and take care.